Are you struggling to find confidence as a leader? Are you struggling to find conviction in your call? Well, this is the Men Are Forged podcast, and I'm your host, Cartwright Morris. And each week, each interview, we will unpack men's stories about how they found clarity, confidence, and conviction, not only in their leadership, in their business, but also in their overall life and identity. So if you want more of this content and how I help leaders do this on a regular basis, go to menarforged.com and you can sign up for my newsletter as well as check out more episodes at the Men Are Forged podcast. Now for today's episode. All right, welcome into Men Are Forged podcast. I got a little something different today. I'm excited to have Robert Kerbeck. He's very unique because he's an Ivy League guy. But he's a former actor, still acting. But we're going to be talking about his book today, about him being a corporate spy. The book is called Ruse, Lying the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street. Robert, it's great to have you in today. First off, I really got to ask you this. You know, my audience, being a corporate spy is unique enough, but also you got to share with my audience how unique it was going to the Super Bowl. So please, if you would just give me, because I know you're there. I'm sorry your team lost, but I do want to just give you a little opportunity to share about your experience going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Incredible game. You know, we chatted a little bit before we came on air. What a privilege to be at a game like that and to see two offenses competing like that. Obviously, Kansas City, it's hard for me to dislike Kansas City because they have Andy Reid, who was our coach. You got the Kelsey brothers connection. People from the Midwest, they're generally pretty hard to dislike. They're pretty friendly people. So, there was no, it wasn't like when the Eagles beat the Patriots, I really hated the Patriots. I didn't feel that way about Kansas City. I wish the Eagles had won, but it was great. I got lucky. A friend of mine works for the Rams and hooked me up with a ticket, which was incredibly kind. So I got to go, went with my best friend from high school, which was just a blast. He and I, cruising around. And Scottsdale, Arizona, incredible place, great food. So it was really fun. It was really a special time.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that fun about this experience? I mean, I remember going to the national championship in Pasadena, which is just beautiful. And outside of my team losing at the last second, every part of it was just so much fun. So appreciate you sharing that. So to get into the book a little bit, and really I love for my audience to know a little bit of backstory, what got you in there. Share a little bit about what got you into really initially acting, what got you into Hollywood and all that.
Yeah, so, I was in college, you mentioned Ivy League. I went to University of Pennsylvania, but I paid for it myself. I had a full-time job while I went to school, which was pretty tough, pretty brutal, especially on the social life. My freshman, sophomore years, when most kids are partying and joining frats and having beers, I was working. And I certainly, wasn't dating. I didn't have a girlfriend. And so my junior year, I got accepted to be an RA in the dorm, which gave me free room, free food. And I all of a sudden was like, okay, I don't have to have this job, or I could only work at, 10 hours a week. And I wanted to meet women. And hey, gentlemen, where's a good place to meet women? The theater. I'm telling you right now, sign up for a play. It'll be you, two other guys, and 12 women. So and that's what I did, and it definitely was a great place to meet women. But then I found out that not only did I fall in love with a girl, I actually fell in love with acting. And got really into acting. And when I graduated, I wanted to move to New York to try to be an actor, but I didn't know anybody that had been a performer or an artist of any kind. My family had an automobile dealership. My dad kind of was expecting me to take it over, so I went to work there. But the kind of trickery of sales, it just kind of didn't feel right to me, car sales. And so I finally moved to New York, tried to be an actor. Actors need survival jobs. Who stumbles into a job as a corporate spy, which is what I did, which is pretty ironic because it was far more dishonest than car sales.
Yeah, I was about to say car salesman itself, right? It does a lot of acting.
Yes.
So, I mean, what about acting? Before we get into corporate spy stuff, what about acting that really attracted you, and what did you love about that profession?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's something about, creating a character. And when you're in the theater, and when I say theater, it could be movie theater too, any performance setting, it's the willful suspension of disbelief. So you're sitting there. Now, what's on the stage isn't real, but there are times when it's done right, when it's done well, that it's real, and maybe you're watching a TV show, there's this great show on HBO right now, The Last of Us, and it's this apocalyptic world, and it's not an apocalyptic world, and there aren't these zombie-like characters running around, it's not real, but there are times where you're in it and you believe it, you feel it, and when you're an actor and you can be part of that, it's really magical.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, being that I've been an actor for about a minute in a play,
Yeah,
I know what you mean. So Robert, I would love to. Okay, so you take this job, and I'm wondering just how this job came about. Who drew you in? Mm-hmm. What was the sell pitch and how did you make money off of this?
Well, when I go to New York, I only knew one guy, my college roommate's brother. He was an actor, and one day he mentioned this job he had, and then he shut up right away. Like he knew he'd been told not to talk about it, but then he talked about it. And then I'm like, dude, I'm broke. I need a job. You got to help me out. And so he gets me this interview. I go to this woman's apartment on the Upper East Side, and for your audience, Upper East Side's kind of the ritziest area of Manhattan. It's old money Manhattan. And doorman building. I was living in Hell's Kitchen in a cave with two other guys.
Oh, wow. Doorman
building, take the elevator to the penthouse. This woman ushers me into the nicest apartment I'd ever been into. I mean, apartment doesn't even, do it justice. It's, this luxury living space. So I knew right away, whatever the woman was doing, it was lucrative, right? She was making a lot of money. And strange interview, never tells me anything about the job, never tells me what we do, sends me on my way. My buddy calls me later, says, you're hired, but don't get too excited because no one is able to do this job. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to be able to do this job because I need the job. I need the money, Now, it's funny. At the time, it was $8 an hour, which is laughable now, right?
It really is.
But anyway, I go and I start training the next day. And right away, I learn, the woman who's training me is telling me, what we do is we call corporations. And in the early days, sometimes we went in person. But what we learned very quickly was that we would get much more information using the anonymity of a phone call rather than going in person, which is, of course, also was much more dangerous as a spy, because if you got caught, you're there physically, they can arrest you. But we learned that using what we call the social engineering phone call, in the book I call the rusing phone call, that we would use our acting skills, voices, accents, personas. This is Gerhard calling from the office in Frankfurt, Germany. We have the European Union regulators here. We have the emergency. We need some information from the States. Mm-hmm. People, oh my God, Gerhard, you're in our Frankfurt office. Because remember, corporations, even back in the early 90s, they have offices all over the world. You could be from anywhere. You could be from Dublin, from London, from Tokyo, from Frankfurt, from Charlotte, from Dallas, and from San Francisco. Wow. And so people would know your name because we were impersonating real people. They would go, oh yeah, Gerhard, I've seen your name on some memos, or, you were on a conference call once, but they wouldn't know the person well enough to go, you're not Gerhard, or you're not Steve, or you're not Rick. Right. And so what would they do? Because what are we taught in corporate America? We're taught to be a good teammate, right? So, hey, Gerhard, buddy, how can we help you? What's going on? Oh, seems a little strange that you need this information in Germany, but hey, we're on the same team. We're happy to help.
Oh, wow.
And so they're telling you all of this secret corporate information that they should never, ever in a million years release. And so that's kind of what we were doing as spying. And, when we talked earlier about football, right? We know competitive, right? Mm-hmm. sports, as competitive as it gets.
Right.
Well, I'm here to tell you, corporate America, it's just as competitive. And any of your audience that was working in corporate America, they know what I'm talking about, right? It is cutthroat to get the promotion, to get the big bonus check, to make it to the C-level suite, right? You are working like an animal. You're making moves. You're playing the office politics game. So the information that spies get is unbelievably valuable, especially to high-level executives.
Gotcha. So you're spying for other corporations. Is that what you're doing?
Correct.
Okay. And so this woman is the middleman between that.
Correct.
And is she or the other corporations giving you any, like, I'm trying to say, like, legal protection in the midst of this? No. So you have to be really good at hiding your identity, which shows your acting skills, right?
Correct. That's right. Correct. Yeah. So all corporations, and I'll take it back and I'll say maybe not all corporations, but 99.9999% of corporations hire spies. But they always do it through an intermediary. They hire a firm, and then the firm is hiring the spy. Sometimes it's a consulting firm that hires the spy. Sometimes it's their executive recruiting firm that hires the spies. But they do it so they have plausible deniability. So the CEO of this large publicly traded company, if they get caught, they can say, we had no idea the consulting firm was hiring this spy company. We had no idea the executive recruiting firm was hiring this spy. We never would have authorized that. That's terrible. Yeah. But I'm here to tell you that many times I personally presented my stolen data, my extracted data, to individuals that today are one step from being the CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world.
Wow.
These are people that are on CNBC, and I personally handed them stolen data on their top rivals, and they said, this is good. Thank you.
Wow. So was there much education you had that they trained you in and understanding the industries so that you could be better at extracting information? Or was it you just had to ask the right questions in the right voice?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the fact that I came from an entrepreneurial family, my family is automobile dealers. So I think because I came from a business family, that skill set really helped me, because if you just had the ability to improvise and bullshit like actors do, that wasn't enough. You also had to have some business sense about how industry worked, how corporate America worked. And conversely, if you knew a lot about business and corporate America, but you didn't have the improvisational acting skills, you couldn't do the job either. And that's why it was a very rare combination of skills that enabled you to be a good spy. I mean, everybody wanted to do this job because when we were doing it, I'm talking 90s and 2000s, this is obviously pre-COVID, where all of a sudden everybody was working remotely. Back in the day, if you could have a job where you could work from home and you could set your own hours, that was unbelievable. And, I mentioned I started at $8 an hour, but by the end of my spying days, I was making $2 million a year. So it became extremely lucrative. So to have a job that you could make millions of dollars from home, over the phone, everybody wanted that job. And I'm here to tell you, nobody, literally in my entire time as a spy, I was able to personally train one person who could do the job.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Marriage Lab. If you want your marriage to thrive, this is a great opportunity to you, because strong marriages are the bedrock of strong churches, organization, families, and community. This is a 12-month pathway for any of you that are looking to really have weekly engagement with experienced marriage counselors, not just one, but many. So go to restory.life/thrive to get on the waiting list for this great program that starts in April. That's restory.life/thrive. And make sure you put the word Forge in the promo code to receive a discount on your monthly fee. Now, back to the episode.
So you're saying there was the time where you had opportunities to train many people, but only one was able to actually do it well.
Correct. Hundreds of people wanted to do the job. Every single one of my friends that in a drunken moment, I said, well, you know what I really do? And they go, oh my God, I want to do that. And I'd say, well, you can come in and try, but nobody could do it.
Yeah. Was there a voice that you enjoyed doing more than others, like any accent or anything?
Well, the German one was my go-to. And what we learned, the buddy that got me the job, his go-to, like everybody had their go-to ploy, like that they just, they just nailed it. And so some of the women, they would play assistants, and they would go assistant to assistant, and sometimes they'd cry and they'd say their boss was horrible and he was so mean, and if she didn't get this document and if she didn't get this information and if she didn't get this, she was going to get in trouble, and then the other assistant would take pity on her. And I would never believe that would work, but it worked every time for them. And my buddy, he would do everything with him was related to the computer. There was a problem with the computer. There was a glitch with the computer. There was this with the computer. And of course, people would be like, and even though it didn't even make sense to me, I would listen to his ploys because we would try to steal from each other. For a while we were working in an office together, so we kind of could all hear each other. And then eventually we were all on our own working from home. But mine, the go-to was the German one. But every once in a while I'd break out the Southern accent. I'd break out the English accent, depending on who I was calling, where I was calling.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever someone on the other end of the line that figured it out? They kind of went, wait, who are you?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I mean, look, we were, look, I got the information my clients asked for 99.99% of the time. Yeah. But did I get it on the first phone call? No, it was a lot of work and a lot of times a lot of prep work before you even made that phone call, because sometimes you'd only get one or two chances to get the information. And so you had to have an ironclad ploy that made complete sense. I used to say that my lies were so good, they sounded better than the truth.
Ah, that's good. Okay. So, you can check out more about this book and Robert's story at, robertkerbeck.com. Robert, man, there's so many questions that I'm just so curious about. I mean, did you use your home phone? Like, how did you hide your number?
Yeah. So and in the book, I talk about the constantly evolving technology so that, every time something would come along, like caller ID, and we go, oh man, it's over for us. It's over. And then we would learn about caller ID block. And then, now this, and then, we learned about call spoofing, right? And your listeners now, everybody knows, you see phone numbers come up. Sometimes the number looks familiar to you. Sometimes it's they know what area code you live in. They know the prefix that you have on your phone. And so you see numbers come up that are recognizable. You can now set it so a name comes up, with call spoofing, so that you can, the other day somebody called and it said mom. Well, it wasn't my mother.
No.
Right? So these are the things that we learned how to do. Mm-hmm. And of course, we began to use the internet to make anonymous phone calls, and we could set up the phone calls so they came through and they appeared to be an internal corporate number. So now the people in the corporation are going, well, what reason do they have to suspect this? Because it's showing up as an internal number, right? So there were all these technologies that we learned. And then, of course, as soon as we learned them, the corporations learned a way to stop that. And, and it was kind of, like spy versus spy. It was constantly the battle of
Cold War.
Yes, the Cold War. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you said you went from $8 an hour to $2 million a year. Speaking of corporate ladder, how the heck did that happen? Was it repetition? Did they just saw your value? How did that lead from $8 an hour to $2 million?
Corporations began to learn about me and to hear about me because somebody would use me, and then they would tell someone, they'd say, oh my God, this guy can find out anything, whatever, and then they would leave the firm where they were, that was a client of mine, and they'd go to a new firm, and the new firm were like, boy, man, we really like to know some stuff about that firm. And then this person would say, I got the guy. And so corporations started to hear about me because obviously you're not advertising your corporate spying business. You know what I mean? You're not doing posts, or marketing, because you can't, for obvious reasons. And so people started to hear about me. And I mean, it got to the point where I had more work than I could handle. I began to hire people. Like I said, I hired the one guy that I trained, and then my buddy that started me in the business, he came to work for me. So we were a team of 3. We had more work than we could handle, and I started turning down corporations. And once I started turning them down, they started offering me more and more money. In other words, they wouldn't even take no. So in other words, they offered me $40,000 to do a project. I'd say, I can't. I don't know. How about if we paid you?
Bring, yeah.
How about if we pay you $80,000 for it? No. What if we paid you $120,000 for it? Yeah, I mean, it was all by saying no. The power of no.
Wow, that's really good. So it's fascinating. This isn't a profession I didn't know existed, but of course it had to, right?
Yeah. Nobody did. And the Ruse is published by Penguin Random House, big publisher. And that's what they said when the book came across, the manuscript came across their desk. They said, oh my God, we've never seen a book written by a corporate spy. We didn't know this world existed. We know the Russians spy on the Chinese spy on us. Obviously, we've seen some spy balloons get shot down recently. But most people have no idea how much money corporations are spending every day to steal secrets and to learn secrets about their rivals.
So were you ever contacted by the government to get information about a corporation doing illegal stuff? Was that ever a crossover?
Well, I was chased by the government who got wind of me, and I won't spoil that for your readers because that's a big part of the book, which is basically not going to jail, not getting caught, right? And there's all kinds of craziness in the book about that. One of the reviews was very kind. It said Ruse reads like a spy novel, and it is. It's a page turner, and that was something I wrote it during COVID, so it was really important to me. COVID was such a tough time, horrible time. I wanted to write something that was fun to read. I wanted to write something that was like, oh my God, this is crazy, this is insane. And so I'm hoping that's what I've achieved, because people seem to really read it and they're like, this is just insane, this world. Like, I cannot believe that you did these things that you did.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a story that you could share with my listeners, not to give away too much of the book, but do you have one story that was kind of maybe even outside of the book?
Oh, well, the funniest thing about Ruse, and my favorite part about Ruse, is it's kind of 2 books. So it's corporate spying, corporate espionage, and the craziness about that. But it's also like it takes you into Hollywood and you interact with all of these people that I was working with, because I was a working actor. So I did a play with James Gandolfini from The Sopranos, and James threw a chair at me one day, and and I drank beers with Paul Newman, and I peed next to Al Pacino, and Kevin Spacey hit on me, and Yoko Ono hung up on me, and I took J-Lo to a Dodgers game, and so there are all of these major celebrities in the book. But I think the coolest or the craziest story was I worked with O.J. Simpson right before the murders, and I got hired to do this exercise video. My manager called me, said, hey, they're doing this exercise video. They're looking for a couple of like guys. And, I was a young guy and in great shape. And I said, well, look, as long as there's no dancing, because I'm the worst dancer ever. He said, no, it's exercise, push-ups, play pickup basketball, do pull-ups. It's an exercise video for guys. It's O.J. Simpson's doing it. I said, O.J. Simpson? Oh my God, I love O.J. Okay, I'm in, I'll do it. So I show up on the set, and the set is in a studio on a dance floor. And then I get introduced to this guy who's the choreographer. I'm like, oh, I thought there wasn't any dancing. And all of a sudden, the choreographer snapping his fingers and, okay, line up, we're going to do some numbers. And he starts going through these dance sequences, and there are women in the thing, and they do the dance sequence in 2 seconds. Yeah. And even OJ does pretty well. And I mean, I'm just like the worst. I'm so bad. I'm so horrible. And the choreographer comes over, and he was going to fire me on the spot, was going to fire me. And OJ says, no. You can't get rid of Rob because he's making me look good. His dancing is so bad that I was making OJ look like a great dancer. So OJ,
you're the only guy on the planet that makes OJ look good.
And your audience can Google it right now. You can Google OJ Simpson exercise video. You'll see me in the back looking like the guy that actually did the murders, because I'm so focused on doing the dance moves that I'm very serious and intense.
Oh, wow.
And that's a chapter in Ruse, that whole experience, because OJ, for some reason, took a liking to me, for some reason bonded with me. He wasn't bonding with anybody else, really, talking to anybody else. And he said things to me and told me things, and I witnessed things on set which will blow people's minds. And of course, what happened right afterwards, it's just like the proverbial truth is stranger than fiction. Like, you cannot believe the stuff that he said on the set of that exercise video. And then you understand who he was in terms of why he did what he did.
Right. Gosh. Yeah. He did put up a squeaky clean image before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really weird. Just even the white Bronco moment. It was like, I mean, I'm trying not to like compare it to like Kennedy or even 9/11, but it felt like in pop culture, that's what it was. Everybody remembered where they were when they saw the news with the white Bronco.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, my thought was a little different because OJ, he had just done a pilot for NBC called Frogmen. And again, sit down. His character in this pilot Frogmen was a knife expert. Right? You can't make that up, right? And that show was going to go to series. Frogmen was going to be a series if, obviously, the murders didn't happen. And OJ said to me on the set, I'm going to get you in Frogmen. So when he's driving down the 405 in the Bronco, my thought isn't, oh, man, these horrible murders. Mom, like, there's my acting career. Like, there's my part on Frogmen. Gone.
Right. Gone in the white Bronco.
Gone.
So I grew up on... My dad showed us The Sting and Butch Cassidy. So I'm just curious, what's Paul Newman like in real life?
Well, look, he saw me in a play. He and his wife, Joanne Woodward, saw me in a play at the Actors Studio in New York, where I was a member. I still am a lifetime member of the Actors Studio. And he loved me. They loved me in this play. And they said, hey, we want you to come up to our house. We're going to do a little reading. I didn't really know the details. I go up to their... Again, apartment does not describe Upper East Side. They live on Museum Mile, right across from Central Park East, on the top floor. Of course, doorman building. I enter into their apartment, and there's all this art on the wall. And all of a sudden, I begin to look around at this art, and I realize they're all original, famous Impressionist paintings. Like, they have Monets and Van Goghs, and on the. And Joanne Woodward brings me in, and Paul Newman. Now, this is a Sunday at 11 a.m. Paul Newman is in a lounge chair with a 6-pack of beer by his feet.
That's great.
I know. I mean, he was very, very cool. They were lovely people, amazing people, obviously incredibly talented people, but huge supporters of the arts and huge supporters of young people, like really believed in mentoring people and supporting young people, which, I think that too many times we don't hear enough about that, about people that are successful, people that are older, giving tips, and helping bring the next generation along.
Yeah. So kind of on that, Robert, what is it really you want your reader to take from this book?
I think when you read my story, it's so insane. I mean, I was an English major, then I was an actor, then I worked in car sales, then I'm a corporate spy, and now I'm back writing, so like, I had like 5 careers, and so I think, and in the book, there's some low moments, obviously, and I'm also, I reckon a lot with the moral issues of the corporate spying, because, I'm not recommending that as a career, though I will tell you there's a tremendous amount of work out there for spies. So if anybody in your audience is looking to pivot to a career as a corporate spy, they can email me through my website. Okay. As you said, robertkerbeck.com, and I will point them in the right direction.
Okay.
But I think that the main thing from the book is that, out of all of this crazy adversity, all these crazy careers, all these crazy jobs, at the end of the day, you just gotta keep on keeping on. You gotta keep grinding. You gotta keep persevering. And all of a sudden you're gonna find, where you want to be. Here I am, I'm not a kid, and now I'm writing books. Ruse is in development for a TV series. So, all of these things, wonderful things are happening, but none of them could have happened if I didn't do every single thing I had done before.
Right.
All the failures, all the mistakes, all the lying, though, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today. And so I tell people all the time, take the journey you want to take, not the journey your mom, your dad, your partner, your boss. Take the journey you want to take because it's your life.
Yeah, that's great, Robert. So really, I'm curious on that. How were you able to find that? And really, what motivated you to keep going, to keep pivoting to the next thing? What kept you moving forward and trying new things and all that?
Man, that's a great question. I haven't been asked that question. I just think, what other choice do you have? You can throw in the towel and throw your hands up and say, I quit. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with doing that for an hour or a day, but at a certain point, you got to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and go, okay, I fell off my bike. I fell off the horse, whatever analogy you want to use. But I'm going to get back on and I'm going to get down the road because I want to do this or I want to do that. And this business didn't work out for me. Right. But, you learn so much from failure. I mean, you learn far more from failure than you learn from success, And so, for your listeners out there, anytime you're failing at something, relationship, job, whatever, finances, it's going to teach you so much that's going to help you the next time around. And you just have to make sure you learn those lessons so you implement them the next time around.
That's great. I mean, I would say in this podcast, Robert, interviewing people that have been successful in their life, and like you said, all areas, there's one common trait is they've all learned how to fall forward. It's like failure is like, it's not an if, but it's a win.
That's right. Thing. Right. It's inevitable. Yeah.
So, Robert, coming up on time here, but I am curious. You do have another book about where you live, and so I'd love to just give a plug for my audience who would like to know more about Malibu Burning.
Yeah, thank you. So I live in Malibu. A couple of years ago, we had a horrific fire here. Obviously wildfires have become, forget about a national issue, because, we have wildfires now, unfortunately, that are killing people and destroying homes in Colorado, New Mexico, Washington, Oregon, and obviously California, but globally, Australia, Canada, Europe, right? Hotter planet, drier planet, more fires. It's just unfortunately the way it is. And so we had this horrific fire come through, burned 17 of 19 homes on my street. 200 of the 300 homes in my little community. We saved our house, and I wrote an essay about it for the Los Angeles Times. Publisher read it and asked me to write a book. And so I wrote this book. And one of the things I wanted to do with the book is, everybody thinks they kind of know Malibu, because obviously TV shows and Baywatch and, most people have been out to Malibu. But, there's a whole part of Malibu that most people don't know. Not everybody is rich and famous. Maybe if you live on the ocean side of the Pacific Coast Highway, sure. But on the land side, they're just regular people, teachers, firefighters, police officers, elderly, broke surfers. And those are the people that were the most impacted by the fire. And those were also the people that stayed behind and saved entire communities by themselves with no help from anybody, because the fire department was nowhere to be found. This fire was so huge, completely overwhelmed. And in most emergencies, the authorities are sort of worthless because they just can't handle it, And what you learn, and what I hope people get out of reading Malibu Burning, is in a crisis, the only ones you can count on are your neighbors. Yeah. And I tell, yourself and your neighbors, and I tell people all the time, get to know your neighbors. Be friends with your neighbors. You might not agree with everything with your neighbors. You might not like all your neighbors, but man, when there's an emergency, and it could be a tornado, it could be flood, it could be an earthquake. In our case, it was a devastating wildfire. If it wasn't for our neighbors, most of Malibu would be gone.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, man, banding together, taking care. Yeah, man, that's really neat. I hope I encouraged some people just to read that off of what you said, man. That's really good. How much we need that,
Yeah, and every once in a while in the book, a celebrity does come in and do some incredible thing. One of my favorite stories in the book is Kevin Dillon, who plays Johnny Drama.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
series, right? Entourage,
Victory!
Johnny Drama. Victory! Kevin stayed behind, and with 2 or 3 other guys, they basically drew a line in the sand at Kevin's house and this other guy's house and said, we're not letting the fire get past us, because if it gets past us, it's going to burn every home. It's going to burn our homes and every home behind us. And they did. They stopped that fire and they saved 20, 30 homes. And, Kevin Dillon, was putting his life at risk.
Yeah.
Could have died, could have been burned. Obviously as an actor, you need your face to look good.
Right.
And so, that was an example of what all people were doing, including celebrities, to save this community.
Man, that's really good. Well, Robert, I appreciate you coming on. Would love for you just give another plug for where people can find you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, robertkerbeck.com, Kerbeck. You can buy those books on there. You can also see the trailer for Ruse, so you can get a sense of what the TV series will be like. But I love this program, and I love what you're doing in terms of the audience that you're sharing this with, because I think it's really great and really important.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for listening to the Men Are Forged podcast. If you enjoyed this interview, I recommend going over to Men Are Forged YouTube page and subscribing. There's more great content, short clips, videos, even some full interviews of just more content about how we are shaping men into leaders. So you can go there to the Men Are Forged YouTube page and subscribe.